Welcome to this new add-on spotlight. It's this time of the year. I'm not sure what happens, but one aircraft after the other one is being released. At least in beta form, right? So because this one is another one which is not, I would say, fully developed. It's the Bell Nexus. Currently it's released as a version 0.2 and has a dependency on the Pelican aircraft. So if you're missing the texture in the cockpit, then you need to make sure that you install the Pelican aircraft, which is the aircraft which has been released a few weeks ago by Asobo as a free add-on, right? It's based on the HALO games. So version 0.2 is really easy to install. You simply download the zip and then extract it. You extract it in your community folder. And then once that's being done, right, you've got this nice aircraft. There are some minor things which you might be aware of. Initially, I also had the issue that the, I would say, aircraft wasn't loaded correctly, at least not from external view. If that happens, delete it and reinstall it from scratch. In most cases, that will fix the issue. So now going to look at the details, right? You can see that there's a lot of detail here. Let's say this, I would say, bottom piece might require a little bit more detail because it's, I would say, a little bit generic. We've got all the rotors over here, right? It in total has, well, let's count, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rotors on the top. They're currently in this position, but you can move them to other positions, and that's something we're gonna have a look at, I would say, in a few minutes. Going to the back of the aircraft, you will see the Bell sign, right? Not too much detail, so I do expect that there will be some more modeling being done to make it a little bit more realistic, because now it looks more like, I'd say, a really nice car or aircraft which you would see at an auto or aircraft show, which has been really nicely polished. The detail here can be seen from the, I would say, piece where you can open the door, but some more detail would be, I would say, nice. So let's go inside the aircraft, and if we look inside, well, for those who know the Pegasus, they already know, okay, hey, how it works, right? You can see the similar cockpit is being used. That's also with the release notes. For now, it has been chosen to use this cockpit, but it could be that they will change it in the future. So for those who haven't seen this cockpit, right, let's go to the individual items which you will find. Let's first start, I would say, with the panel in front instead of the joystick. So in front you can see the master generator, the battery and the avionics, right? These are the 3 most important buttons to start the aircraft. And then here we've got the flight mode, and the flight mode, that will, I would say, once you change it, right, you can directly see that the aircraft starts to move in front. So that will change these rotors, but we will do it once again once we're airborne. Then we've got the display over here, and the display shows the, I would say, throttle, right? So how much throttle is being applied. You can see it currently at 0. We can see the vertical speed, we can see the ground speed, and then the altimeter. Ground speed here again. Ground, I would set the ground speed, but I do think it's the ground, the altitude, to be honest. G-forces, I assume, and TAS, not sure what it's standing for. Here we can see the heading in which we're flying, and if we're airborne, you can see the climb and descent rate over here. You can also change the map by using this button. In this case, you will move to the radar map, and the radar map has a few options, right? You can show the terrain, you can show the weather if you would like it or not, and you can show waypoints. In this case, you can see the waypoints which are, I would say, close by. Then we've got the TFC mode, that's a traffic mode, and traffic mode will show you if there are any aircrafts, I would say, close to you. And we've got the navigation aids, which is, I would say, kind of the same as the waypoints. Only difference is that this will show the waypoints like RTM, which is Rotterdam Airport. And then of course we've got the last one, which is ARPT, which stands for the airport. So you've got, say, a lot of options which you can enable, and in those circumstances you will see more, and then you can switch between terrain mode and the normal mode. The synthetic vision mode, that's what's the default mode, and it will show you this. So it's a little bit like the let's say virtual horizon, right? So that's, but if you prefer to use for navigation, then probably the radar map is the one you should use. The camera view, just as with the Pelican, is only available if you're airborne. Then over here we see a lot of buttons, but all of them are inoperative, like the Pelican, and that's the same thing is applicable to these buttons, as well as these buttons, as well as a lot of other buttons. So if we go into the center, then we see multiple things, right? We can see the nav lights, the taxi lights, the strobes, and the beacon. So there you will find all the lights. And then we've got the dome light, and this is just to increase or decrease the light intensity. We've got the communication radios, which we can also switch easily to navigation radios. Here you can see the active frequency. Here you can see the standby frequency. You can change them by clicking on it and then swap them by using the swap button, or switch the radio off if you don't want to see it anymore. If you're done with the radio, you can go to the engine info, which shows you the engine information, right? How much throttle is being applied, and as well as the fuel mode. You can see that the aircraft has 2 fuel tanks, one in the front and one in the back. The fuel is now at 98%, while the back is at 0%. And then as last item, you should have the electric one, but that panel doesn't work. So I'm gonna leave it for engine info right now. Then here we've got the autopilot mode, and the autopilot allows you to do a lot of things, right? First of all, the altitude hold mode, which will, I would say, keep the aircraft at a specific hold. We've got the auto throttle mode, which will make sure that the aircraft is continuing flying at a specific speed. The flight level change mode, the FLC mode, is not working. And then we've got these 2 buttons up and down, and they are used to increase or decrease the vertical speed mode, which you can enable using this button. The main button to enable the autopilot can be found here. The other options which you will see here are, I would say, the PFD brightness, right, which will change the primary display brightness, and we've got another button here to change the co-pilot's brightness, and then we've got the panel brightness to change the panel brightness. These buttons over here don't work, but we've got several buttons that do work over here, but these are used to change, for example, the radio frequency. You can do it using the buttons here. The engine starter modes to start the engine, the auxiliary engine or the generators, and the other engine modes, right? We've got 2 generators, we've got 4 engines, and then of course the throttle. Coming to this panel, we will come to the fuel valves, both here, and we've got the fuel cross feed, right, to change fuel from one end or one tank to the other one, and then 3 inoperative buttons here. For the co-pilot, you have a similar display, except that you also have, let's say, this, almost a disk drive here. I'm not sure what it's used for, but you can use it if you want. And then we've got a lot of buttons here, which are all inoperative. The co-pilot has the same buttons as the normal pilot, as you can see, right? So we can still, I would say, zoom in or out for the camera angle, or zoom in and out for the map. Then over here, we've got the pitch and aileron trim. If you want to use it, that can be found over here. And of course, also the joystick to control the aircraft. On the top, there's nothing, well, nothing besides, I would say, nice windows, so you can look outside. But enough talked, let's go airborne. So I'm going to reset the view. And the first thing you need to do is increase the throttle. And if you're increasing the throttle, you will see that the aircraft will go, I would say, in vertical mode. Right, so that's, I would say, kind of expected. So don't expect that the aircraft can go, I would say, in forward direction or backward, because even if you would move these panels, right, you can see it changes a bit. But this is simply to, I would say, adjust the altitude. You can see that the panels will move partially, so you can make small corrections, but not going hard forward. So if you want to do that, you need to change this magic button, right? The one we already talked about, the flight mode. So switching it to the flight mode and now going externally, you can see that the, let's say, rotors have now changed, and you can, let's say, push forward or not, right? So let's adjust the speed. And here we're flying, right? So let's go inside the cockpit to have a nicer view. So you can now use it, and you can see it goes, I'd say, pretty fast. So where can you see the speed of the aircraft? Well, you will see it over here, right? We need to keep an eye on the altitude, of course. But over here you can see the speed, and over here you can see the altitude. You can see that we currently have configured the map in a 10 miles range. So we can see everything around us in 10 miles. But you can also, of course, use this view, right? So we can see that we're climbing almost 40 degrees let's say, angle. This is also shown here. Some other information. So now you can see that the aircraft starts to descend the rate, right? So the vertical speed is decreasing, but we're still climbing. So here you can see the difference between you and the ground. So other things, while having a quick look where we are, you can go to the camera vision, right? So the camera vision, just like the Pelican, shows you the camera, and then you can change the angle. So you can either say, okay, hey, I want to move it like this, or you want to move it like up. Then you can change that. So you can either use the radar map, but also the camera vision if you want to navigate. Switching on the autopilot is, I would say, pretty easy. Unfortunately, there are, at least as far as I've found out, no indications if the autopilot is switched on besides this yellow arrow. And let's assume that we want to hold the altitude. We can press it like this, and then you would expect that the aircraft to hold its altitude, but as you can see, it looks like that it isn't working 100% perfectly yet. So let's say forget about the autopilot for now. That will probably be fixed in a future version. So we're currently already airborne, right? So we're flying out, say, at a pretty high altitude already. And here ends this review of this nice aircraft, which is, I would say, based on the Pelican aircraft, which was released a while ago from with Asobo, right? So easy to fly, not that hard. Landing will probably be a little bit harder. Use the flight mode change option to bring the aircraft in vertical mode, right? So let me do that for one time to show you what happens. So I'm going to change it to virtual mode. You can directly see that the aircraft almost comes to, I would say, a standstill. And then we're here, right? So then we can decrease the altitude by simply lowering the throttle. And based on that, we will hopefully decrease the altitude also. I'm not gonna wait till it's 100% landed, right? So here ends this video. I hope you liked it. If you liked it, then consider to use the like button. If you got questions or comments, then feel free to post them in the comment box below. And if you want to stay up to date about new videos I'm posting, then make sure that you're subscribing to my channel. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.